10 Steps Further is a podcast designed to help you get 10 steps further along your spiritual journey. If you've been on your journey for 30 years or 30 minutes, if you believe in God, or even if you're not sure He exists, all we're trying to do is help you get 10 steps further. I'm Jonathan, and this is Jack, and we're just taking a walk. Why don't you join us? Welcome back to 10 Steps Further. We're back another episode. Got Lesley again, the voice of all women.
They're like, we can't ask anybody else. Everyone's on lockdown.
Yeah. We're probably breaking some laws by being together. This is essential work that we are doing.
This
absolutely.
Somebody's going to listen to this 3 years down the road. This is Corona, right? This is
Corona season.
What are we, a month in?
5 weeks, I think.
5 weeks?
From being locked down, or from, what are you saying?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The lines were a little
Well, this is how we mark time, right?
What's
This is
that?
how we mark time. When did the NBA cancel their season?
Oh, yeah.
That's when it was.
What was the date?
That was
I didn't even know the date. That's a historic moment. But, yeah.
I think it's March 24th, but maybe
I think it was like March 15th that
Maybe
school
it was.
stopped.
That
Yeah.
school stopped?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay, so that must have been earlier than that, like March 13th
Right.
or something.
Yeah, so
Here we are.
No sports.
We've gotten Lesley to cry already, so that was
Before
good.
we started.
Yep.
Before we started.
Yep.
Not everyone is loving quarantine. I actually do like a lot of it, but there's parts of it that are really hard.
Man, parenting young kids. Well, parenting old kids. I don't know.
Yeah,
Everybody's
I would
a little.
imagine it's. I would
Parenting's
imagine
hard.
it's much more intense with young kids.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
my guess. Like the stage that your kids are in right now has got to be much harder. My kids can do a lot by themselves. They don't need constant governance of every little action so that they don't kill each other.
They don't throw rocks at the dog.
They don't. Yeah, they're past that. Now it's a screen,
Right.
and they interact. I mean, they still. What I have noticed is there's a little bit of playful, bumping into each other.
Okay, tell
all
them
that.
what your boys said when you said, "Why are you throwing rocks at the dog?" They said their response was, and I quote,
He liked it, the dog.
So I thought when you put them both against the fence and started throwing rocks at them, I thought that was good.
It's good parenting. That's
Excellent. It was real eye for an eye
That's
stuff.
a very mom thing to do right there, though. That's like if all your friends jumped off the bridge, would you jump off the bridge?
I already told you
You've
that
done that
story
one,
about
yeah.
my boys. Oh,
She
dear.
did not. She did not throw rocks at her kids.
No, I did not.
She didn't. Figuratively, she
But for
painted
some
the
reason,
picture.
they just don't think oh, maybe I wouldn't like this if it was happening to me. And so I
Yeah.
have to be very
Well, so here's the thing.
explicit.
I remember being very, very young. It was when we lived in California, and I moved from California when I was 4. So I was very young.
Yeah.
I remember crying and being in my bunk bed. My brother was above me, and we were in trouble because we threw rocks at the dog. So this is a thing when you got two brothers that
Okay,
are
but that's
a couple years
weird.
apart.
Like I don't understand your dad doing that. You threw rocks at your dog, I guess.
Yes.
Because if a neighbor dog wandered into your area
Right.
and started threatening the sheep, your dad shot a shotgun at him.
No, he shot a 22.
A 22 was still
and he threw a brick.
Correct.
Yeah, but this was okay. First of all, this dog was the size of a horse, half Newfoundland, half Saint Bernard. It was a neighbor dog that was known for eating our sheep and our livestock on our property. We had 10 acres in the middle of nowhere, and so the nearest neighbors were also
yes, but that does feel like hypocrisy. You can't throw rocks at our dog, but if somebody else's dog comes in, you can shoot him.
Shoot him. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so here's where we're at today. Our topic is who rules your heart. So the people of Israel, they're going into the promised land. They had to wait 40 years.
Right.
All right?
Yeah.
We're in like 30 days quarantine.
Right.
They did 40 years of quarantine.
Which is interesting because somebody showed me the other day that quarantine actually comes from a word meaning 40 days.
That is what I just read too.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow,
Very
that is
interesting.
crazy. But
Yeah.
this was
I
actually
guess.
40 years. Okay, so he's got a big speech prepared. He's had 40 years put together,
Okay.
and he says this.
Can't wait to give my sermon.
I know, right? I can't even. I don't even know where this is from. Bible.
Okay.
Google it. He says, now fear the Lord, serve him with all your faithfulness. Okay, these people have kind of been abandoning God and doing their own thing.
Right.
So we're going to the new promised land. This is what I want you to do. Throw away the gods your ancestors worship before the Euphrates River and in Egypt. Serve the Lord. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourself this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. Now, do you know what he says after this? Finish this. But as for me and my household,
we will serve the Lord.
I mean, how did he know way back then that would become bumper stickers? And
That's a good sermon,
I
man.
bet
Right
you
up there with Abraham Lincoln's speeches.
there are tattoos
Martin
that
Luther
people
King.
have
Yeah.
put on their children. Right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes,
So he
good
gives
word.
a clear challenge, all right? And the people say this. People answered, far be it from us to forsake the Lord to serve other gods. We too will serve the Lord because he is our God. And so then what does Joshua say after that?
You can't serve the Lord.
Just if you read it, he
It's so
basically
good.
says, yeah, I've heard this before.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You're not gonna do this.
Right.
You're still gonna throw rocks at the dog, right? No matter what you tell me, you're gonna. It feels a whole lot like. So I was a camp director for 7 years. Plus, I went to camp for 20 years of my life. Like was a youth pastor, and
Right.
I never actually went to camp. I mean, I might have gone to camp myself like twice.
Yeah. Yes,
But
me too.
I was like in charge of camps forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
And every one of these camps had a campfire, right? You remember the campfire,
Oh
right,
yeah,
Lesley?
all the quiet music playing in the background, everyone breaking down and sharing, letting the walls fall down and spilling everything, and how
Life
they're gonna
change
how
every
they're gonna
summer.
radically change when they go back, and how
Never
it's gonna be
again.
different, and everything they've learned.
I'm going to stop smoking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
all
going
the
to
things.
quit partying. I'm not going to sleep around. I've heard this. I'm going to respect my parents.
That's why they paid for camp.
That's right. That's right.
There's one thing you get out of this camp.
Yep.
So
That's all
I
you
did camp, my job, 10 weeks every summer, and these kids would come back, and it all sounded the same,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That thing that they weren't going to do,
Yep.
they were great, and then they kept doing it again, and
Right.
they had to come back, and that's just kind of how these people were,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that you will have to tell your kids to stop throwing rocks at the dog. Again, it was definitely going to happen. It's like I feel like if we keep saying that, we might get Lesley to cry
About the
about the dog.
what kind of parent lets their kids?
Lets their kids. Yeah, it's
yeah.
a good one.
Let's
Their kids.
So this is where they wound up. Israel ends up making it their promised land, and they do all the things they say they're not going to do
Right.
until they get to this spot. We've read this verse before. Judges 21:25. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And it basically said this. You can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me where to go. You can't tell me what's right for me or what to do with my money or what I should do with my business or how I should parent. I mean, we can tell Lesley how to parent right now as far as dogs go. You can't tell me what I shouldn't eat or drink or wear. And it's just, that was then. And it feels like those words are, it's America, right?
Right. Yeah, I think it's
That's
everywhere.
Jonathan and Jack.
Yeah. I think that's everywhere. I think that's every generation, that we all have to like one of the things that I've always or that I've believed for a long time is that every generation needs its own revival. Every generation needs to figure it out for themselves. And so there is this sense of every generation needs to choose who are you going to serve. And we do our best to try to get them to pass it down to the next. But they still have to choose who they're going to serve and who they're going to follow and what it's going to look like. And so I don't think it's just here and now. I think it's every generation has to figure it out.
Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. Okay, so here's the question. I threw this out to you beforehand. And what are areas of your life you have a hard time with people telling you what to do? And our conversation, which is very Corona focused, is they shut down all the canyons in the parks, so you can't walk any place but the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I have not even missed a beat. I have a canyon behind my house.
Yeah.
There was one time, like, the fence leads out into the canyon.
Right. Your own
Right?
backyard.
Yeah.
Mine does too.
Yeah.
Mine does too.
And so I just kept walking in the canyon. I never see anybody in the canyon.
Because most people are obeying the rules, Jack.
Yeah.
No, and they I do it all the time. I never see anybody in the canyon ever before, now,
Jack.
whatever. But that's not like Lesley. She can't do that.
Yeah.
Well, I tend to. I mean, most of the time, I'm pretty good at submitting to authority, and in like a work relationship or like a friendship, like a new friendship or something, I might kind of question or be skeptical at first. But once I've realized like, oh, okay, this is like legit. This person is an authoritative position for a reason, whatever it is, then I am pretty open to submitting to that. And so I feel like I'm not mad at anybody who's going in the canyon, but the people who are tearing down the caution tape is so annoying to me. I'm like, if you want to go in it, go,
Yeah.
but just go under the caution tape.
Yeah,
And
limbo.
It's like
Just
yellow
do limbo.
tape, like,
Right.
why do you have to take-
why do you have to keep ripping it? And so I will go and like just tear it back or tie it back together, and then 2 minutes later it's ripped down again. And I just don't understand.
It doesn't irritate me that they do it. I just don't listen.
Yeah.
And I know that that's a problem with me. Like I realize that that's on me.
Yeah.
But I'm also Lesley is outnumbered in this.
Well, I feel like for me, I actually pretty much go along with most of the rules that are out there. Generally speaking, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I break the speed limit as long as everybody else is breaking the speed limit. Like
Right.
so I follow the crowd in most of these things as far as like, okay, these are reasonable requests. I'm on lockdown just as much as everybody else is on lockdown through this whole thing. The thing I think that I have the hardest time with is where I have a conviction in a direction, like a true conviction. Like I just feel like this is right. This is the right thing. There's the wrong thing. And to keep the peace, I got to do the thing that I think is the wrong thing. I think that's where I battle the most.
The only other pushback I have is if you ever felt like you were really, really, really super right, and then somebody shed some light on something that you had no idea about. And I think when we're talking about like authority, there's certain things that I know as a parent that my kids are like, no, I'm absolutely right. And they won't figure out for like 15 years until they have a different,
Right,
until
so-
there's new light that's been shed on a situation. And I feel like in the case of this canyons, like we don't necessarily get it all, but I'm assuming that the epidemiologists and the governor and all the people that are making the recommendations have a very specific purpose in doing it. And they are in an authoritative position, or they've studied for however many years for this or whatever that looks like for a specific reason. They've been appointed to that.
Right.
And so I feel like there is a chance that they have light on a situation that we may or may not understand. So just because we feel like it's the right thing doesn't mean that we're actually right.
Yeah, well, and when it comes to the canyons, I have kind of two thoughts on that. Number one, I comply with being in the canyons, like fully. All right, you tell me I'm not supposed to be in there, and so. But the second thing is, we live in a weird time where all the information they're presenting, and the information's out there, and I'm watching it, and the information's bad information. Like the things that they're doing don't make sense in the light of what they're sharing.
Well, in this
so
specific,
if they didn't tell me why,
right.
if they didn't tell me why, and they just said, "Hey, we're the authority, don't do this," I think I'm more compliant than if they like. I always say that to my wife when she's talking to the kids. I'm like, "Don't give them a reason why, because then you've gave them something to argue with."
Yeah.
If you actually just pull rank and tell them what to do, then you actually are going to get more compliance that way.
Well, and I think in this specific example, there's a lot of like scientific reasons of why they're doing things, but the people who are actually communicating it don't have any of that scientific background, and some of it's not.
Right.
What you're getting from
Or
media
the people who are
is
enforcing it
not a good filter.
don't have that background.
Right.
But
I
yeah.
think we could talk about Corona forever.
Right.
It wasn't the point of this
But I
podcast.
do-
But it is
But I would
the
say-
moment in time.
But I would say as well, like it has like not regarding that. Even my statement wasn't about canyons at all. It's more about I feel like the times that I've wrestled with authority the most is just generally speaking, I feel like I just kind of have this strong sense of I want to do what I believe in more than what's popular. Canyons don't factor into the discussion and doesn't bother me.
So let me take this to a spiritual place, because generally we like to think, we want to make the call. Yeah. We want to do what's right in our own eyes. Right? And that is definitely a issue with our relationship with God. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like, I'm okay with doing what you asked me to do. Like I'll take your peace and I'll take your purpose and your forgiveness is great because I need it. You know, I got kids and I'm going to need forgiveness. I want all that stuff that you're offering me. Right. But I got my limits. Right? I have a list, all right? I don't need you to tell me who I should date. Right. And I don't need your advice about what I should eat, and don't tell me how much I should work out. And I don't need you to tell me what to do with my money. It's my life. It's my body. It's my money. It's my house. Yeah. You know, I don't need your rules. I'll follow them as much as I think that they're valuable to me. Right. Go ahead with your own life. Leave me alone. Yeah. Billy Joel. You're grateful that I did not sing that to you. Right. And the idea that Israel had and that we have as well is this. I can do what I want, when I want, with whoever I want, as long as nobody gets hurt. Right. But what's the problem with that?
Somebody always gets hurt.
Somebody always gets hurt. And you go, well, look, I can do what I want with my what I drink. All right? This has got to be a rough time for people who have a drinking issue. Oh yeah. Or they're right on the cusp. Right. Because what do you do when you're all alone? I mean, that really is a thing. Yeah. But you go, look, man, it's my body. I'm the only one that I'm hurting. Right. But boy, we know that story's not true, do we? No. Yeah. When it comes to alcohol? Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I just have this enormous amount of hurt that I'm still trying to deal with at 57 because of was so frightened by what would happen in my home. Right. Yeah, the factors, I think one of the great weaknesses that we have as people is that we're very short-sighted. Like we're only focused on the moment. Like even if we're thinking a year out, we're still short-sighted in comparison to what's really happening. Like so, when taking alcohol as an example, it's just like, okay, it was a moment where I acted the fool because I drank too much. And yet you're not taking into consideration the example that you're setting, the people who are influenced by you, the contribution to society as a whole of what you're doing, when you're purchasing something, what it's going to. All of these factors are far bigger than just simply I'm not hurting anybody but myself. Like the ripple effect of everything we do touches thousands of people. Yeah. Okay. Let me give you another one. This one, super common, more and more common. In fact, if you disagree with this, you will get much pushback. I can sleep with whoever I want as long as nobody gets hurt. Right. Yeah. As long as consenting. Yeah. That's the word. Yeah. How? Okay. Talk to me about that. Hyatt?
I mean, I just think it's hard for nobody to get hurt when you have any sexual relation with somebody. Right. Like somebody's going to get hurt because that's like the most intimate.
Hurt? Yeah, no,
it's like the most intimate moment you can have. So there's going to be hurt if you're not together or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not. It's the person that you're sleeping with when you break up. It's the people that are watching. Not watching. You know, like your family members all know what's going on. Right. You know, there's all kinds of that. If work becomes the sole focus of your life, you go, well, I'm just investing in my job, right? But it's up to me whether or not it's going to take over and take over all my time. Right. What's the consequence of that?
Well, anybody else who's not getting any of your attention because you're so into your work. And you're not, I don't know, if you're so into any one thing in general, whether it's work or exercise or, your
obsessive
food.
about.
If you're
and-
obsessed about
yeah.
anything, there's something else that's not
It's
healthy.
the God that you're choosing to serve. It's a very Joshua statement. Which God are you going to serve?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't. You can't do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, and have no one get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Unless what you want and with whom you want are good things and godly things. Like
Right, right.
That's the thing, is like to recognize that there are good things that we want. There are healthy things that we want. There are, like, I mean, if what you want is I want a stable marriage, and I want to raise my kids to know the Lord, and I want to be healthy. Now your wants can be lined up. So it's the problem has nothing to do with necessarily what our wants are. It like just the problem is not that we want, that we have desire. That is not the problem. The problem is what we desire. Which God are you choosing to serve is the
Right.
issue.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Hey, we get to that place, right, where we go, I'm tired of doing what my parents say.
Yeah.
I'm tired of being faithful. This is exhausting me. I'm tired of watching what I eat. I'm going to eat whatever I want. I'm tired of being clean. I'm going to drink what I want.
Right.
Now, here's what I think is the issue that I think you're getting at is the crazy thing about running from that responsibility, running from what your parents say, running from what culture says, running from all of those things, is that thing that was supposed to give you freedom, that your freedom ultimately ends up ruling you.
Yeah.
It's in charge of you now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That attitude, whatever it was, whatever you decided that
Right.
everybody was keeping you from, now is in charge of your life.
Yeah. And it was in charge of you from the beginning, I think. You know, like you think about drugs, just generally, like drug problems and people who have issues. Like we think of the addiction as being the problem, but it's like, well, or cigarettes or any of this. Like you knew from day one this isn't good for you. You made a decision to sacrifice a piece of yourself to a moment. Now, you may have become a slave to that eventually, but it was in charge in the beginning. Like it's like there's perhaps, I know in the old days, like when cigarettes were like first a thing, it was like, these are so healthy. Like there were actually commercials that were like selling you on the health. That's not the case anymore. Like now you are for some reason, you are choosing self-destruction from day one. Like it was in charge from day one.
Or rebellion of some kind.
Yeah.
Rebellion.
But it sounded like
You weren't in charge, but you
Freedom.
thought it sounded like freedom.
it's freedom. That
can't
was
tell me what
decision.
to do.
Yeah.
Freedom. Yeah, that's right. I've been thinking a lot, even since you said that about like, don't give them a reason, because then they have something to push back on. I've been thinking about like in an authoritative position. So if I think of God as like my ultimate authority, I feel like actually the opposite is true. Like the closer I draw near to God, then the more I see in line with the way he's seeing. And so it's easier for me to follow some of the things that he would want for me to do. It's easier for me to spend time worshiping him instead of worshiping my body. Or it's easier for me to like give my money away to this thing because I'm in line with the way he's seeing it, because I'm drawn closer to them. So I think that that's probably part of the thing that feels hard for me in this like parenting position, is that I feel like as the authority over my kids, I mean, God is the ultimate authority, but over my kids, I want them to be able to like draw near to me so that they can be more in line with the way that I'm seeing. And so it feels discouraging when they can't see the way that I am.
Right.
And so it feels like this lack of intimacy because I think that's true. Like the more times that I spend with God, it's so much easier for me to submit and to not have other things rule in my heart.
Well, and I think too, like that whole, like that's maturity. Like maturity as you get older, the why becomes, like that's something that you want to teach your kids as they're getting older. Here's the why. They have to know the why. Like when a little kid will respond to do this because, why? Because I said so and I'm in charge. And that's maybe our first beginning relationship with God, is God said so. But that doesn't work long term. Like that works for a short term. But as you get more mature, and typically outside of a heightened, intense situation, like because if I want to do something that the authority has told me not to do, and then they give me a reason, I'm going to argue the reason because I want to do the thing. And so I'm gonna have it. But as I grow in my understanding maturity, outside of the direct situation, with trust for the authority and respect for the authority. Now we can talk about the why that has not, like, so there will come a point with your kids where outside of a moment, like if you're doing it in the heat of the moment, they're going to fight you. And so that's the place where I'm like, there should be, I think, personally, I just think, like, you're just going to have an easier time leading somebody to give no reason whatsoever and just tell them what to do. But as they're growing in maturity to their own place of leadership, now you get to talk through the why. Yeah. Because that's maturity.
But I do believe there are times when God says, look, just keep your head down and do it.
Yeah.
And
that he may not always give you the reason.
He may not. You might have the why, and you just have to do that thing, whatever that thing is.
Yep.
But you basically, generally, you're going to find in your life, you're going to be ruled.
Yeah.
Like being ruled. Does anybody like the sound of that? Yeah. I don't want anybody to rule me.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Tell me what to do. Do this, do that. No, that sounds terrible.
But yet at the same time, I think we naturally love it. Like weirdly enough. So like the Enneagram, things like that. Like I feel like that's an interesting thing. We absolutely want somebody to tell us who we are. We want somebody to define us, give us permission to be who we've always been. We crave that. We're drawn to it. We'll buy any book that will tell us that it's okay that we're us. Like I think that we're drawn to the thing is we want to trust that person, and we want to know that person or whoever's saying that believes in us. But yet at the same time, we're so drawn to we're created to follow. We're created to follow. Like we're sheep. My brother says that all the time. Like we're just sheep, man. We need a shepherd, and we will find a shepherd. Every single person on the planet will find someone to serve. Choose this day who you serve. No, I'm not going to serve anybody. Yes, you will.
Right.
You're built for it.
So you decide you're going to drink.
Yeah.
Now drinking is calling the shots.
Yeah.
You choose, I want to sleep with whoever. You can't tell me who I'm going to sleep with and not sleep with.
Yeah.
Sleeping, it's calling the shots now.
Yeah.
It's
your appetite.
7 years into your marriage. Well, you get upset, you get in the fight. Gosh, it just looks better to just ditch this and go to that person.
Right.
The sexual desire is calling the shot.
Yeah.
Pornography is calling the shot right now. The issue that we have is not I don't want anybody to rule me.
Right.
But that's out.
Yeah.
You're going to be ruled by something. But is what is ruling you, is it benevolent?
Yeah.
Does it care for you?
Yeah.
Does it want what's best for you?
Yeah.
And you're going to find that work really doesn't want what's best for you.
Right.
And money doesn't really care for you, won't hug you when you've had a bad day.
Yeah.
And all of these other things are just ways the world's trying to sell you to fill you, but doesn't care about you.
Well, and here's an interesting thought, even like bringing it around back to parenting. Have you ever met an adult who is like, you know what? I didn't have any parents, or I only had one parent, and that was the better. Like typically people generally will blame some of their problems on the fact that they had a parent that was checked out, that they didn't have a good parent.
I just did that about 20 minutes ago in the podcast.
Yeah, saying you would be better to have no parents.
No, I think I just blamed it all on my parents.
Yeah. But it's interesting, right? I mean, here you have people, I mean, in teenage years you fight against your parents, but yet you get to adult years, and every single adult will say, if they had good parents, I'm grateful that I had good parents. If they had bad parents, I wish I had better parents. What are they saying? I wish somebody better ruled me. I wish somebody better ruled me. I wish I had somebody who loved me, who ruled me.
And all the research shows that for kids that they are highly more successful and they thrive so much more when they have a very clear schedule and expectations and firm boundaries.
Yeah. Like I feel like I get to look at my own kids and see, especially my older two, my boys, and see, oh, this is where I would like I see that they're better than me in so many ways. And I look at them and I think, perhaps I wouldn't have some of the issues that I have if I had had somebody like me in my life at their age. Like my dad died when I was 14. I feel like, God was so gracious and led me through that. But yet at the same time, I see my son as having that same independent spirit that I have. He's got the same thing. I want to go everywhere. I want to, but yet at the same time, I also see he has a much better relationship to authority than I do. And it's just an advantage that he has. And because of the fact that he's got two parents in the home at this age of his life.
He had a benevolent ruler, right?
Yeah.
He had somebody who legitimately cared about him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, really, that's what we need, man. We want to rule ourselves. We want to make all of our decisions. We don't anybody to tell us what to do.
Yeah.
But when we give our lives to any of those things, they will take over and they'll take control and they'll keep us from being the people that we want to be.
Right. Agree. Yeah.
But God will not. He will be that benevolent ruler. So why is it, do you think, that people have a hard time? Because you can make Christianity all about do this, don't do that, and people rebel against that. Why is that?
I think it's hard for people to see that it ultimately will make their life better.
Yeah.
I think it feels like I want the autonomy and it feels like I want the freedom, and they don't understand that the things that are spoken because they're actually going to bring better to your life. Yeah. Just 2 days ago, my son said to me, "You're mean. You don't let us do like anything." And I said, "Well, what do you mean? You're always telling us
that
we
means
can't."
You're a good mom right there.
You're always telling us we can't do stuff.
Yeah.
And so, I'm not like, well, I told you so. So I engage in this long conversation. That's whatever. But I said, well, do you mean when I told you that you couldn't hammer on the pavers? Or do you mean when I told you that you couldn't bounce with sticks on the trampoline? Or do you mean when I told you that you couldn't cut the bread on your own, that you still needed mommy to help at the age of 4? And all of these things, I shed some light on them, which they don't have a frontal lobe fully developed, so it's probably not as good. But
bounced off
like
the
all
forehead.
these things that feels, Jack, to your point, it just feels like rules.
Yeah.
But as a parent, you can see no, this is actually going to make your life better. You're actually going to be protected from hurt and from pain and from suffering, and you're going to learn how to navigate relationships better, and you're going to understand how to forgive, and you're going to understand how to ask for forgiveness, and you're going to understand how to right your wrongs, and all of that stuff you can see as a parent. And I think that we forget that God has so much more and can see so much more than we can in our tiny little house, in our tiny little community, in our small part of the city, in the country, in the world. And I just think that it's just so great to think of that from a parenting perspective, because even if we really think that what we're doing is right, ultimately God just has these things in place for us because it's going to make your life better, happier, less hurts, less, pain and suffering. And
I think for the most part that's true, but at the same time I would also say sometimes it's just not better. Like sometimes, I think if you look at, if the goal is a pain pleasure discussion, and you're going to have more pain and less pleasure if you do the bad things, you're going to have more pleasure, less pain if you do the good things. If that's the discussion, I would wrestle with that a little bit. I think that there are some people living some pretty crazy lives. Maybe in the Hollywood setting, the rock star setting, where they're getting a lot of pleasure. There are some. Some are experiencing a lot of pain from that stuff, but there's a lot of pleasure coming from that. But the fact that the discussion is bigger than you're going to have more pleasure in the long run. It's bigger than that. It has to do with the fact that not only are you experiencing pleasure, but you're also influencing a generation. And you're influencing a generation to something that's bringing you pleasure. Thinking of things, pornography, something that might bring you pleasure, but it's bringing a lot of other people a lot of pain. Alcohol, you're actually escaping a lot of the pain. But as a result of that, what are your kids experiencing? What is their upbringing? What's their work situation going to be? What's your marriage like? What's your wife experiencing? All of those types of dynamics
I don't think it's just an individual pain pleasure. You do good things, you're gonna have more pleasure. I think sometimes, and I think that's why it's hard, is because the reality of it is, it's like somebody who wrestles with homosexuality their entire life, and they try to hold to some righteous standard. In that, they are probably not going to experience more pleasure by doing life the way that that the Bible reads. Like that's going to be a difficult road for them. I don't know how because I don't know that they're going to experience more pleasure on either side. I'm just looking at it, just saying this is a bigger discussion than just if you do the right things all the time, life is going to go good for you. Because sometimes, like when you read the Bible, sometimes you do the things that God tells you to do, and you die a very violent death. Like that's everywhere in the Bible. So,
well, I don't think we can judge. Let's say people in Hollywood who are driving this and drinking that, and, right? Like I don't
know that we can do either way.
I don't know that we can. I do in my heart feel like those people who are living for them, whatever it is, if you're living for you will ultimately pay the price of that. Yeah. I love biographies and autobiographies,
right?
And they're all very spiritual. They're all very spiritual.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood, okay?
Right.
Loved his movies, so I listened to his book.
Okay.
And Clint Eastwood kind of did whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
And it was so spiritual because every time he did something that was off the rails or stepped out on that person, whatever, you could see the pain and suffering that comes from it. Yeah. I mean, the world generally works in this way, that the closer I follow to God, the more I'm going to have, let's say, purpose for sure.
Right.
And I do believe the Bible talks a lot about prosperity. It may not look in the way that you want, in the car that you drive or the money that you make, but you can certainly, you're at this season of life with your kids, Jonathan, because you've invested in something valuable, and you're really enjoying this season because of that time.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But there are people that will give their life to God and go on a mission field. I have a friend, one of my very best friends in the whole world. His dad went on a mission and got sick, and it essentially killed him.
Right. Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why he's very resistant to believing in God or following or being all in.
Yeah.
Because if you could do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I guess for me, I look at it and I just feel like, okay, God has blessed certain actions, and then there are certain, I mean, that's I think the discussion of sin. There's things that are cursed, things that are blessed. And but the discussion goes far outside of the individual. And so like the effects are overall, and they're bigger. And so it's not just like, I feel like it's a dangerous thing to say, hey, if you follow God's rules, your life's going to be better. Because then you're going to have the person whose dad goes on the mission field and dies.
Right.
And you're like, well, he followed the rules and his life wasn't better. And so you're going to have that.
Yep. I think, again, let's use Lesley's example again. Right? There is...
Throwing rocks at dogs?
Throwing rocks. Are we back?
My poor children, if they ever go back and listen to these podcasts when they're old, are going to be like,
we did what?
Oh, my mom.
So if, Lesley is trying to teach these children how to deal with life, what is the best case scenario? That in their lives, they get only good teachers and only good soccer coaches, and everything kind of goes their way, and they get into a really nice college and they make only good money.
Right.
Is that better? Or that they go through difficulty, they go through pain, and they learn grit, and they learn determination, and the difficulties develop within them character.
Right.
Right? Yeah. So I think this is ultimately the scenario that God paints for us. It's not that things went your way. That's not true for anybody.
Right.
And even as I read the autobiographies of people who are really rich and famous, it's not everything went their way. No. They had difficulties, and then they got money, and that just created new difficulties. Right? It's how did they deal with the difficulties and the situations that they were placed in, and what created in them those situations. Right. Did it create maturity and growth and depth and grit and determination? Yeah. So that when you go through the next difficult time, you can go through it with a sense of peace. Like God got me last time, he's got me again.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, I think sometimes I feel like people who have had really, really, really hard situations that are just following after God, but they've been like one blow after another, they actually have like a very clear sense of what their like purpose is in the world. Like,
Right.
well, I know that my daughter went off the deep end and she's a drug addict and she never knew the Lord, and I know that I like am meant to be a mentor now, you know,
Right.
or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, every person's story is different, right? That's like the awesome
Yeah.
thing. But, and I don't think it is going to necessarily all go perfect. I just think that there is a sense of peace if you can know that your God has greater plans than what you can really.
Right. Right. And the
Fathom.
and the picture's bigger than we're looking at.
Yeah.
Like what's going on is bigger than what we're seeing in the long term. And that's been a thing for me. Whatever for this week is just like trying to remind myself like we're in a moment. We're in a moment. Like don't get overwhelmed by the moment.
Yeah.
This is a long journey, and there's just more going on in the long term. Because I think the short-sightedness causes us to make bad decisions in the short term if we don't see that the picture's bigger. And a lot of that is when we talk about substance abuse, and we talk about a lot of the bad decisions are just short-term decisions. So all they are.
Right.
It's a quick fix. It's a quick, moment of pleasure, and I'm willing to pay whatever the consequence will be for that. And it's just not a good trade. Most of the time, it's just not a good trade.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Lesley, we think you're a great parent. We want to go on record to say that you are a great parent and a benevolent parent.
I don't know that I want to say that, though, because what if somebody listens to this 10 years from now and she really turned out to be a terrible parent? Like you just went down as
A benevolent ruler. I
I'm
believe that
kidding.
she is a benevolent ruler.
Absolutely.
Look, folks, here's the deal, man. You get to choose. But the reality is you're going to be ruled.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
You're going to be ruled.
Yeah.
Are you going to be ruled by appetites and pleasures and
Yeah.
selfish desires or whatever?
Yeah.
And we have to get to the place where we go, does this God really know what's best for me?
Right.
If there really is a God that's big enough to see all of this and
Yeah.
he knows what's best for you, why would you not put yourself in the situation where you are doing what he says and putting him in control of you, if that's really true? I also feel like I want to say one more thing, all right? I really didn't go in that many canyons. And the one in front behind my house,
gosh.
the one behind my house never had any yellow tape on it. So just so you
You
know.
got him scared because you said in 10 years from now. He's worried he's going to get arrested in 10 years.
We're going to dig it up like he did what? That's
Oh,
awesome.
it's so funny.
Thanks, guys, for being with us.
Yeah. We'll do this. They'll keep coming out.
They'll
Tuesdays.
keep coming out.
Tuesdays, keep checking in. Got an email from Dr. Greg Campbell, and he said it's a highlight of his week to take us on the run with him.
Oh.
So good.
It's so good. So feel free, share it around. Keep checking back every Tuesday. See you next week.
Thanks for joining us for these last 10 steps. If you'd like to join us for another journey, or if you know someone else who's on this walk, subscribe to our podcast at 10 Steps Further on iTunes, or simply search 10 Steps Further on your podcast app. And if you'd like to be part of the conversation with a question or a comment or a criticism or even a wisecrack, look us up on Facebook. We've created a Facebook group where you can be part of the conversation. We'll see you next time.